Okay, we are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this live All Dolphins podcast for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. Dolphins in early offseason mode as the NFL coaching news continues to move around the NFL, and something's going on here. Let's check this out. Oh, we got some people joining in here. Hi, everyone. Yep. Some technical issues going on here. Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, Dolphins early in offseason mode. Some coaching news going on around the NFL. Not a ton happening with the Dolphins in terms of the coaching moves, although Ryan Crowe, their outside linebacker coach, interviewed with the New England Patriots on Tuesday for their vacant defensive coordinator position. However, the Patriots also are said to be interested in Detroit Lions defensive line coach Terrell Williams for that position. And if the name sounds familiar, that's because he's a former Dolphin assistant. I want to say probably about 10 years ago, coached here for a little bit. And interestingly enough, a name that has been mentioned as a possible replacement for Aaron Glenn as the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator might be Kelvin Shepard. Again, if you remember the name, was a linebacker for the Dolphins in 2014 and 2015. And has been a linebackers coach for the Lions. Anthony Weaver was scheduled to interview for the head coaching position with the New Orleans Saints on Wednesday. That's been pushed back because of the crazy weather. The reports are that it's been pushed back because of the crazy weather we got going on in the South. Snowing in Florida, Pensacola, that area. Down here in Miami, no snow, actually maybe a little bit colder today, but certainly nothing that would bring any sort of snow. In fact, as I look right now at 8:02 p.m., it's 71 degrees, so not going to be snowing here anytime soon. So Anthony Weaver will be interviewing in person with the Saints after doing an interview on Zoom last week. Aaron Glenn interviewed with the Jets in person all day on Tuesday, left the building per reports without a deal being consummated. The feeling probably still is that he's going to wind up getting that job. So the two hires in the AFC East in this offseason cycle will have been two defensive coaches, Mike Vrabel with the Patriots, and then if it turns out to be Aaron Glenn with the New York Jets. Aaron Glenn also was considered the favorite to land that New Orleans Saints position, for which Anthony Weaver definitely is a candidate, along with Mike Kafka, offensive coordinator for the New York Giants, as well as Mike McCarthy, who is, of course, the former Green Bay Packers and Dallas Cowboys head coach. Good news for the Dolphins. Well, good news for Chop Robinson. Tuesday named to the Pro Football Writers of America PFWA All-Rookie Team. I voted for him. So you can give me my props here for helping the cause. Didn't vote for him because he's a member of the Dolphins. I voted for him because he was a worthy candidate. And the way the PFWA All-Rookie Team is set up, it's 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. Chop Robinson wound up making the team at linebacker, along with Jared Verse of the Los Angeles Rams, who, by the way, was the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, along with Edgerrin Cooper of the Green Bay Packers. First time since 2021, the Dolphins have had somebody on the all-rookie team. That year they had 3, and they were their top 3 picks, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, and Javon Holland. Going back to the coaches, we should mention Darren Rizzi because he's a name who's come up. You know, Dolphin fans really would like for him to be brought back to serve as special teams coordinator after the firing of Danny Crossman. It's very difficult for me to see that happening because Darren Rizzi is extremely highly regarded around NFL circles. He's interviewed for a couple of head coaching positions. He's got ties with Sean Payton, for whom he coached as special teams coordinator in New Orleans for 3 years. Denver Broncos just so happen to have an opening now at special teams coordinator after firing Ben Kotwica or Kowitkoms. I apologize for not knowing off the top of my head the gentleman's name, but is they have an opening for a special teams coordinator. So I think it's really not difficult to put 2 and 2 together and place Darren Rizzi with the Denver Broncos for that spot. There's also the issue of returning to a team for which you interviewed for a head coaching position and was bypassed, which was the case with Darren Rizzi, who interviewed for the Dolphins coaching job in 2019. Job went to Brian Flores instead, and we saw what happens. The same with Dan Campbell when he interviewed for the Dolphins head coaching position in 2016, and instead it went to Adam Gase. And I don't want to say feelings get hurt, but yeah, it's not necessarily easy to stay on a staff if you thought you were an ideal candidate to become the permanent head coach and you weren't given the job. I think at that point, a lot of the coaches will be like, let me end that chapter there. It's what happened with Dan Campbell. And this is what happened with Darren Rizzi. The idea of coming back, again, it does happen. It's not unprecedented. Certainly Josh McDaniels with the New England Patriots, who, by the way, has just rejoined their staff as offensive coordinator for a third stint. What that means for the Dolphins, yeah, Josh McDaniels not a terribly good head coach, but he is a very good offensive coordinator, and now he's going to get to work with Drake May and with Mike Vrabel. And as I've mentioned on Twitter, sooner rather than later, the Patriots are going to be a problem with that combination because I happen to think Mike Vrabel is a very good coach. We have to mention the Tyreek Hill situation. Not that there's anything terribly pertinent that has occurred since middle of last week. It's been radio silent from Tyreek. He put some stuff on Twitter, not a ton. And nothing from the Dolphins beyond Chris Grier's statement at the end of season press conference. Drew Rosenhaus also has not spoken on the matter. And then there was a ESPN story from Jeremy Fowler on Tuesday, an annual story where he speaks with NFL scouts, executive personnel people to get their thoughts on what could happen in the upcoming season, the next season, which obviously now will be 2025. And one of the thoughts was that the Dolphins are going to wind up trading Tyreek Hill and look for the New England Patriots to be a trading partner. The Patriots have tons of cap space to accommodate Tyreek's salary. From a Dolphin standpoint, if they trade him, it's $28 million. If they do it prior to June 1, if they do it June 1, would be $12 million against the cap. Also save $12 million, and he's gone, and you lose your most dynamic playmaker, but you also get rid of a headache. And this is one of those where's the balance? And to me, I think we have reached a point where we need to ask ourselves, is this the best move for the Dolphins? Yes, Tyreek can be a lot, and that's being polite. The Dolphins a better offensive team or a better team without him? That's a question that needs to be asked. And it may be a point where either he wants to leave so badly or it's going to become so toxic where the Dolphins basically are not going to have a choice, where it's going to be addition by subtraction, which is a term I like to use a lot. And I certainly used it when the Buffalo Bills traded Stephon Diggs. But Stephon Diggs in his final weeks, games with the Bills wasn't anywhere near the impactful wide receiver that Tyreek Hill is for the Dolphins. So I wrote a column on Miami Dolphins on SI.com, basically cautioning against being careful what you wish for, because it's really easy at the end of the season to say, oh, my Lord, this guy's such a nightmare. Get rid of him. Be concerned about exactly what the offense looks like without him for a full season. And further on that story by Jeremy Fowler on ESPN.com is the insiders were asked for two teams that could take a step back in 2025. And the Minnesota Vikings were one of the teams mentioned, and so were the Dolphins, which certainly would not be good news considering they didn't make the playoffs in 2024. So, again, as always, thanks everyone for joining. And by all means, please check the website, Miami Dolphins on SI.com Always loaded with new content, even in the off season. Please like, subscribe, and share. I guess download all the things you do to this video. Let's go to some of the comments here that we got. And first off, thanks everyone again for joining me. Much appreciated on this Tuesday night. Philip Marrow, what's up? Thank you, Philip. Hey, Philip, how you doing? Oh, great question here. J Live Do, who do you think will be our next wide receiver and special teams coach? Wide receiver, I don't have a clue. I'll be honest with you. I need to do some digging and researching on that. Chris Tabor is a guy who makes an awful lot of sense as the special teams coordinator, the interim head coach of the Carolina Panthers in 2024 last year. Sorry, 2023 had replaced Matt Rule before they hired Dave Canales on a regular basis. He's a guy who makes an awful lot of sense. His path has crossed with that of Mike McDaniel once upon a time. And again, Mike McDaniel very often goes back to guys with whom he has a previous working relationship. So this is why the guy made perfect sense. Again, as far as wide receiver is concerned, I'm going to plead the fifth on that one. I don't know that I have a name for you right now. And J Live Do again goes back Brian Hartline. Yeah, he may have higher aspirations than being an NFL wide receiver coach, though, because he's got a great reputation at Ohio State, and they keep producing stud wide receiver after stud wide receiver. How much of that is just great recruiting, and he's getting like really good players like Jeremiah Smith from South Florida, by the way, who's just completely ridiculous as a true freshman. So I don't know. No, he'd be a great addition. He'd be a great addition, but he doesn't have any prior working relationship with Mike McDaniel that I'm aware of. Number one, and B, I just don't know whether he wants to be a wide receiver coach in the NFL. Philip feels like in Indiana right now is minus 13. Dude, I feel your pain. I grew up in Montreal, Canada, so yeah, I feel your pain. Dana, what up, buddy? Big Johnson, I got one for you for my first comment. Poop, the Dolphins record next season prediction. Jesus, can we wait 2 minutes to see who they wind up drafting, retaining, signing as free agents, 27 pending UFAs. Great chart from Nick Corte from overthecap.com on Twitter on Tuesday. It's one of those graphs, the 4 quadrants, where he was splitting the teams in terms of combined snaps heading to free agency for each team with cap space, and bottom right of the quadrant of the bottom right quadrant of the chart were those teams with the most combined snaps heading to free agency with the worst cap situation. Lo and behold, the Dolphins were right there. The one good news is they don't have that many terribly significant free agents. If we're going to be honest about it. Javon Holland, Calais Campbell. And of those, Javon Holland, as I've said many times, he's going to get a lot of money on the free agent market. I think his reputation is at a higher level than his actual performance, but I do think that there'll be a market for him where he's going to get a good amount of cash that the Dolphins are going to think long and hard about matching and eventually will not and maybe probably should not. And then when it comes to Calais Campbell, A, he's got to decide if he wants to play again. B, if he does want to play again, I do believe he's going to get offers from other teams who are contenders, which is what he wants, that may be more solid in terms of their contender status than the Dolphins. So I would be certainly way under 50-50. Javon Holland will be back in 2025, maybe 25%. Calais Campbell, let's put it 40%. Be great if he does come back because he was absolutely fabulous in 2024. Roasted nuts, even the Redskins organization, Commanders now, but okay. Got a franchise QB before us, and we have a better team owner when it comes to the financial aspect. Well, Dolphins have not been able to get a Jaden Daniels type, not because of a unwillingness from Stephen Ross to spend, because that dude will spend. Say whatever you want about him. Perfectly fine with all of that. Never been shy about spending. The problem is, again, Jaden Daniels is an absolutely special dude. Props to the Commanders for getting him at number 2. If you look at the higher echelon of NFL quarterbacks, and we had that discussion, Dave Hyde and I, on the podcast on Monday. If you look at the really, really top level guys, I have 4 at the top. Jaden Daniels knocking on the door. If he gets to the Super Bowl as a rookie, he may have to get in there right now for the time being. Let's keep him outside because it's only done it for 1 year. It's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. And if you look at how the teams got those, Joe Burrow was the first overall pick. And you can talk about tank for Tua all you want. From 2019, by the time that college football season was over, hip injury or not, Joe Burrow was the best college quarterback prospect at that time. And if you don't believe me, go find tape of that LSU team in 2019. It was ridiculous. And yes, I fully understand the LSU offense was loaded at the skill position. They had Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back. They had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, I think another Terrace Marshall at wide receiver, loaded. But so was Bama, and Bama had an offensive line that had for like four first-round picks and running backs also. So both Alabama and LSU were loaded offensively. Joe Burrow was completely sick that year. And to me, injury or not, he still would have been the first overall pick. And then you look at Buffalo, had the foresight to trade up from 12 to 7 in 2018 to get Josh Allen. You look at Kansas City, had the foresight while they had a Pro Bowl quarterback on their roster in Alex Smith to trade from 27 or 28 to 10 in 2017 to pick Patrick Mahomes because they had somebody in their scouting department who looked at him. It's Borgonzi, who's the new GM with the Tennessee Titans, was part of the decision-making process, had the foresight to look at this guy and going, we need to get him. Alex Smith is good. He's only going to get us so far. Patrick Mahomes' ceiling is ridiculous. And that's what you have to do. And the Dolphins have done that, have not done that. They've never done that. When they have a starting quarterback, they kind of stick with him. Stuck with Ryan Tannehill for 7 years, even though he was never a guy who you saw as somebody who could carry the team. And then we're getting into a whole other Tua discussion. Tua is good at times. He's very good. He's not at the level of those guys. And the Dolphins, like so many teams around the NFL and around the AFC, are going to be operating at a disadvantage when it comes to the quarterback position because those guys are special. And what happens is you have that kind of quarterback, it just increases your margin for error. You don't have to be as good everywhere else if you have that kind of quarterback. Again, not the same thing as saying the Dolphins can't win a Super Bowl or can't get far in the playoffs with Tua. They just require more everywhere else. That's all. Ocean Breeze detail. Bring back Welker. Dude just got fired 2 weeks ago, so I don't think that's going to happen. Raging Dolphins maniac. If they trade Reek to New England, then they are definitely tanking next season. I don't see in any way, shape, or form any tanking whatsoever. Even if they trade Tyreek. If they trade Tyreek, it'll be because he wants out so badly and that we're looking at a situation where it could become toxic, and it could basically infest the entire team. Dolphins are already over the salary cap with 9 players scheduled to make 10 million or more as a cap number. They had 2 of those in 2024. Tyreek Hill and Teron Armstead. Teron Armstead, even after he took a pay cut, restructured his deal. They have 9, including 4 over 20 million in 2025. Tua's at 39. Bradley Chubb's at 29. Tyreek's at like a 28. And then I think Teron Armstead's at 22 is the other one. Those numbers will come down. Dolphins are over the cap with more players to sign. But no, I don't think they're not tanking. And certainly I'm one of those who believes that Stephen Ross is going to give Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier every single solitary opportunity to turn things around to get the Dolphins where Stephen Ross wants them. But he also put out a statement when he announced that he was retaining him for 2025, talking about how he's expecting better results. So I think tanking is not in part of the equation here. We couldn't get that lucky. The Dolphins trading Tyreek's ass. He's robbing this team. Sorry, not sorry. Dude, I totally get the fan frustration with Tyreek Hill. He's a handful. Then again, not like you didn't know that when the trade was made, and he was great. He wasn't good. He was great in 2022 and 2023. And I get the whole, well, he didn't show up in big games. Who did on offense? But the guy was good. He wasn't as good in 2024. And I'm telling you, there was one thing wrong after another with him physically for most of the season. And that played a part in it. The off the field headaches, yeah, they're annoying. Tyreek could not be pining more for a return to Kansas City if he tried, if you received his social media posts. But I think the Chiefs obviously made a good move. Dolphin, maybe Tyreek had surgery on that residence, unable to tweet. Somehow I get the feeling Tyreek would find a way to tweet regardless. Oh, wrist. Yeah, on the wrist. Why did Wes Welker get fired? Best guess here, I think probably lack of accountability issues at the wide receiver position. Remember all that talk from Mike McDaniel after the season about guys showing up late and all that? I think that may have been a factor. There wasn't a whole lot of development involved in somebody like Eric Izukama, for one, who was a fourth-round pick and now in his third year with the team, who just got signed to the 53-man roster at the end of the season, didn't do a whole lot before that. I think that was part of it. But the flip side is he wasn't given a whole lot to work with. He got a kind of a rotating group. Robbie Chosen, Odell Beckham Jr., which was a weird signing. What am I forgetting? D.S. Skridge, Robbie Chosen early in the year. Not like he had a ton to work with. I think it probably had to do with the general issues with the wide receiver core in terms of doing what they were supposed to be doing. That would be my best guess. Although I did hear Joe Rose mention that Wes Welker is more old school in his way of dealing with players than McDaniel is. Although my counterpoint to that is this was his third year. If that was a problem, that would have been discussed or addressed earlier. So I think it has to do more with A than B here. Miami Dolphin experience. What's up, Boop? Keep up the great work. Much appreciated. Let's bring in a good vet for a good price, possibly somebody like Lance or Zach, and draft a guy like Will from Ohio State. Is that a good route to take? No. Again, the idea is it's twofold at the quarterback position. Is number one, address the backup spot where you feel confident you can win games. Like, for example, Tua missed 6 starts in 2024. Let's say you can have some confidence you could go 4-2. Trey Lance doesn't give you that in the least. Zach Wilson, I don't think so either. So that part of it, no. It needs to be a more established veteran where if the Dolphins go back to being really good on offense with Tua, then they can be really good, with a good, solid backup, whether it be Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota, Joe Flacco, Jimmy Garoppolo, one of those guys. And then as far as Will Howard from Ohio State, what's Will Howard's ceiling? It's not one of those guys and certainly get me away from the idea of getting a rookie backup quarterback. No, it needs to be, again, a veteran, a solid veteran with some sort of a resume. So as far as a developmental quarterback, give me somebody who's got some sort of skill that stands out, that maybe gives you the possibility of accomplishing something down the road. But those, again, the guys you're going to get, we're going to be special. Usually people will recognize them. They're going to be first round picks, and Dolphins are not picking a first round pick. Cam Ward slides, or the Dolphins can make a trade that's not outrageous. Sure, go get Cam Ward, because Cam Ward has a kind of Jaden Daniels ceiling. And as long as the AFC includes Burrow, Allen, Jackson, and what am I missing? Mahomes, if you want to be on a par at quarterback, that's what you need. I see some talking heads say Jeremiah Smith is ready for the pros. What do you think? That dude's a baller, man. Holy smoke, is that dude good. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. I'd have to say I haven't seen close enough what his physique looks like, if he could withstand the playing with grown men. But as far as the route running, the hands, he just made one catch yesterday, which was really, really simple kind of. But the way he caught the ball was so impressive. It was like kind of a little out, and the throw was low and a little bit away from his body, and he just reached out his hands and just snagged it. And it was like, holy smokes, was that impressive. So, no, I mean, but the kid, I think the kid's got a bright future. Joe Geronimo. Oh, Geronimo. Okay. Safety and guard unnecessarily high value choices for the 13th pick in general. If we wait for one of those, what do you think we do? You mean if they don't pick a safety or a guard? Yeah. D tackle would be one place that would make a lot of sense. That's kind of the spot that really would scream if it's not safety or guard. The other thing you can do is you can draft a tackle with the versatility to play guard, kind of like a Laramie Tunsil type of situation like they did in 2016 at number 13, incidentally, would be another avenue. It's not going to be quarterback. It's not. I've seen Ashton Genty a couple places. They're not picking it. If they didn't pick a running back in 2020 when they had shots galore and they could have had any running back in the draft, they could have wanted, including Jonathan Taylor at 26th in the first round, or even 30th after they moved back with Green Bay. They're not picking a running back at 13. Wide receiver, if they trade Tyreek, that would become certainly a possibility without question. And then defensively, here's one long shot for you guys. Cornerback, maybe. Kendall Fuller. I know the good folks at overthecap.com are pinning him as somebody who could be a cap casualty. Not sure I buy it, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility, because there is a cap saving to be had there. And if the Dolphins do let him go, I, for one, prefer Cater Kohu as a slot corner than I do outside. And speaking of Cater, by the way, this is a plug here. Miami Dolphins on SI.com today did a story on the top 10 performers of 2024, according to moi. And I had Cater Kohu on my list. So check it out to see who the other ones were. Which big salaries are we dumping? Well, again, Dolphins have 4 salaries over 20 million. So no, 4 cap. I keep doing the same thing. 4 cap numbers over 20 million for 2025. And I'm going to look him up real quick. And it's Tua at 39 mil. And again, the thing with Tua with his contract, if he's on the roster on the 3rd day of the league year, which will be March 14th, and he will, then his $56 million salary for 2026 becomes fully guaranteed. But I could see, and by the way, he's got $50 million guaranteed for 2025, which is why, he's going to be on the roster on the third day. That's a lot of money to eat if you wind up, even if you wanted to decide to let him go. The cap number of $39 million is egregious. I do think it's going to get brought down. Pardon me as I hydrate. And that's going to be accomplished through some sort of restructure, moving money around. I would not expect an extension, but it could be like the salary turned into signing bonus, where again we're kicking it down the road, and then you spread out over more years. You had a couple of void years where you're dealing with the salary cap impact, more spread out later on down the line. Bradley Chubb at $28.6 million of cap number. That's not staying there. I have said, and then if the Dolphins release some post June 1, and just a quick reminder for what that means is the release is done whenever you want to do it. You can designate up to 2 of those, though, however, as post June 1, which spreads out the dead cap hit. But you can't use that cap space until the contract stays on the book until June 1st. And again, each team is allowed 2 per year. The Dolphins did that with Xavier Howard last year. They could do that with Bradley Chubb if he's not agreeable to a restructure or a pay cut. Tyreek Hill's at $27 million. His deal got redone last year. That's also a very high number. I could see something happening with him as well. Teron Armstead, $22.8 million. I have a very, very hard time given the injuries that he's had and the fact that that's purely from the Dolphins standpoint, at $22.8 million for a guy who's had injury issues the last few years. I have a hard time believing that's going to stay like that. And then the other possibility is he may just wind up retiring. So, but as far as dumping is not the right word. I don't think they're necessarily dumping them. Bradley Chubb's a possibility in terms of dumping a player because of the salary cap. He's a possibility. I'll give you another one. It's not necessarily a big salary, but I think Raheem Mostert very well might get released because he's got a dead cap space. And dead cap, by the way, for those wondering what that is basically you still have a cap charge for that player even though he's no longer on the roster. Based on the way the contract was structured. Well, Raheem Mostert, Dolphins waive him. They save $3 million of cap space, and he'll only take up $1 million after the restructure or the extension they gave him last year. So it's certainly somebody else that I would look at. Durham Smythe maybe, but it's not a ton of money either. Again, you have to look at those big ticket item guys. The other guys whose cap number is higher than $10 million are Jalen Ramsey, Austin Jackson, Jalen Phillips, Zach Sealer, and Jordan Brooks. I don't think any of those guys are going anywhere. There might be some restructuring done. Could see Zach Sealer getting an extension to lower his cap number, which is 12.5, as well as reward him for a job well done. Do you think Xavier Howard a fini? I do not, and I am told that he is very much looking forward and hoping to play in 2025. Kind of weird what happened to him in 2024 where he had workouts with the Bengals and the Cowboys and nothing happened. But again, I am told he does absolutely want to play. Jeffrey's Corner, this man always gives other QBs so much props and crap on Tua as if Tua has the same O-line and running back like the other QBs. Okay, Jeffrey, sure. Joe Burrow, great O-line? Sure, we'll go with that. Joe Burrow, great running back? Go ahead, give me the Bengals rushing leader in 2024. In other words, roll my eyes, shake my head, give me a break. Sorry. And as I said, Tua's a good quarterback. At times, he's a very good quarterback. He's not elite. He's not in the same category as Burrow, Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Mahomes. I do think he's in the same category as Jared Goff, who does have the benefit of playing surrounded by a fabulous supporting cast on offense, including a ridiculously, insanely good offensive line, great wide receivers with Amon-Ra St. Brown and the speedy Jamison Williams, two really good running backs, Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who's outrageous. Sam Laporte is a very good tight end. So, yeah, you want to equate Tua to Jared Goff? Absolutely no problem there. Maybe even to Jalen Hurts. I think Tua's a better passer than Jalen Hurts, except Jalen Hurts adds a massive running dimension that Tua does not possess. So, but please spare me I always crap on Tua. If my opinion of him bothers you, such as life in the big city. Matt, that's funny. Matt O'Lear. Awesome. Have the Dolphins fired Tom Olivadotti yet? For those not familiar, that's a great name from the past. For those not familiar, Tom Olivadotti was a long ago defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, for whom Don Shula had an awful lot of loyalty, who stuck around despite having some defenses that did not produce particularly well. Statistically, this was in the late 1980s. And he also kind of became infamous for coming up with a line. There were a couple of games where they gave up like 250 yards rushing. And Olivadotti after the game would say, like, well, if you take away the 63-yarder and the 70-yarder they had, we actually did a good job. Which doesn't sound particularly good when that's your first comment. So that's a good one, though. Made me laugh and also appreciate the contribution. Dana, I believe Carson Wentz is a free agent. He's a free agent this year. He knows the West Coast offense. He's been relatively healthy. Do you think he would be a good quality backup? I think Dolphin fans would want him to what he did against Denver in Week 18 this year when the Dolphins needed his help. No, I kid. Yeah, I don't have an issue with Carson Wentz. He's a solid backup, and the Chiefs, an organization whose steps I would have no hesitation following because they know how to do it. They thought he was the answer for them as their backup quarterback. And I kid about that Week 18 game when half the offense wasn't playing. So it wasn't all on him. And then they were playing a team that needed a win to make the playoffs. So, yeah, I have zero issue with him. I would put him in the mix. Like him, Mariota, Dalton, Garoppolo, maybe even Flacco. One of those guys would be a massive upgrade over what the Dolphins had in 2024. All due respect to Tyler Huntley, who blew me away with his performance at Cleveland because I never saw that coming, but then really struggled, particularly in the first half against the Jets. Jack, the Dolphins can win versus good teams. So logically, if you are losing Tyreek Hill, what are you really losing other than the headaches? You can't beat good teams with him. Okay. Well, probably what you could be losing is the ability to as consistently beat the mediocre teams. Chubb is almost 30 million. Yeah, he's 28.6. Yep. Dolphantina, do you think Teddy Bridgewater will end up coaching in the NFL one day? That's a great question. I don't know that he's ever, because he's spoken about wanting to coach high school when he was still playing. And going back to his alma mater where he played his high school football at Miami Northwestern was just such a logical move. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that he's ever talked about being an NFL coach. So I would say as of right now, I don't believe that's the case, but who knows? Unfortunately, as much as I like Tua and his accuracy, he makes season-killing mistakes. He is the reason we lost our season because of his decisions on the field and not playing smart. It's frustrating. I know you're going to talk about, the not taking care of himself. And, and that's always going to be the problem with him is you're always going to hold your breath. And is everybody going to be okay if he's told and he acquiesces and all he does is every single time there's somebody close, he goes straight down and never picks up extra yardage like that? Can you actually succeed playing quarterback that way? And the same is in the pocket. There's a pass rusher coming on. He curls up and takes a sack instead of taking the big hit, making the throw. It's tough. It's a tough way to play quarterback. Dana, does Bradley Chubb get restructured or cut? Yes. See what I did there? I think he's going to get restructured, but I certainly do not put cut out of the equation. Scummy, have we cut Tua yet? Not happening. So, by the way, who is it? The fellow who's like always crap on Tua? See, it's not happening. They're not going to cut Tua. Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I don't know. I have to look with this. I think his salary is just too ridiculous for a backup. I can't do Garoppolo, too injury prone. That's fair. That's fair. If Tua is cut before March 15th, what are the cap repercussions? Here we go. Dead cap space if he's cut before June 15th. Dead cap space for 2025. You will have an $83 million charge for Tua not on the roster. You will lose $44 million of cap space. The cap savings is minus $44 million. So, yeah, not happening. Would you like a trade down move to get more picks? An extra second or third would be beautiful. Wouldn't have an issue with that. You gotta start nailing those guys though. Cannot have picks like Cam Smith, Channing Tindall. Oh, by the way, Channing Tindall's one. We're looking for cuts. Savings very minimal, but it's like, yeah, 1.4 mil they'll save off the cap. And the guy's a special teams player. So, I'm all for getting multiple picks. No issue there. You just gotta nail them. And I think I'm going to wrap it up with this one. Buddy Dana, as always, pleasure. You're a good dude. I don't care what they say about you. In the draft, if you were the GM, would you do BPA or focus on always BPA? This is how you develop a nucleus of young talent, something the Dolphins haven't done, and it's kind of bit them in the past. I think they kind of picked Cam Smith looking ahead to replacing Xavier Howard, bypassing better players. Austin Jackson was a position pick with the 18th overall selection in 2020. I think they were better players they could have had, but the Dolphins really needed an offensive tackle. And they wanted to have that. So, okay, I lied. I'll go another one. Poop. What percentage of the roster do you believe, honestly, thinks Tua can lead them to a Super Bowl? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It's a great question. I certainly would think it's higher than it was in 2020 or 2021. I don't think it would be unanimous. And I think we see the shortcomings at times when the Dolphins are playing good competition. And yes, I get it. It's not all him when they lose, and I've never said it was all him when they lose. He is, however, your highest paid player, and I just discussed the salary cap number, the salary guaranteed in 2025, $56 million guaranteed in 2026. You pay that kind of money. I'm sorry. Yeah, you absolutely need to be better than your teammates at situations like this. You need to be the one elevating your teammates the way the top guys do. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, those guys. And it's not all about statistics and numbers and all that. Patrick Mahomes' stats were kind of very meh in 2024. Go check out third down passing, though. He was really, really good. And again, you need to play or watch when they need a game-winning drive at the end. See how often he succeeds, how often he fails. That's a big part of it. So, Okay, that's going to wrap it up. Again, thanks everyone for joining me. Smaller crowd than usual here for a live podcast. I get it. It's January 21st. We're now, 2-3 weeks since the Dolphins ended their very, very disappointing season. Don't give up hope. One of these days, it's going to turn around. A lot of things are going to be happening in the near future with free agency coming up. The draft process, the draft scouting process, going to be coming up as well. So we'll do a live podcast. Keep an eye on for the notifications, and we'll do the regular podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with probably Chris Perkins, I would think. Not 100% sure. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and check out the written content on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Thanks, everyone, for spending some time with me. Appreciate it.